Very good evening to everybody. This is the second part of the chapter for dissolution of a partnership firm. Yesterday we saw the primary process of dissolution, and we also did a sum in Excel. We did a live sum in class for the entire dissolution process. Today we are going to move on with the next part, which is piecemeal payments in case of dissolution. Okay, now what are piecemeal payments? Piecemeal payments are primarily paying the partner in parts. Okay, practically in practical life, entire assets are not realized together. Okay, disposing assets, finding the right buyers, getting money is a very lengthy process, and it often stretches over a period of year or more. So mostly the partners don't want to wait to get an amount till the end. So what we do is we assume that the payment, the first batch or the first part or the first installment of payments that is coming to us by selling the first class of assets, we assume that this is our final payment and we distribute them in the order of priority. Okay, so the partners end up getting little bit of what they will finally get. Okay, so this is the idea of piecemeal payments. This is a very practical concept, because in theory it is easy to say that we will first realize all the assets and then make payment, but in practicality it is often not possible. So piecemeal payments is something that helps the partners get money in installments as soon as even the creditors, not even the partners, the creditors, the banks, whoever owes money to you. So if you have got an X amount, say 50 or 40% of what your assets have been sold, and then money is available, so why waste it by keeping it in the bank account? You may as well start paying your creditors in parts or in order of priority. That is what piecemeal payments is. Okay. Various firms follow different methods of piecemeal payments. Here we are going to be discussing primarily two methods of piecemeal payments. Okay, the first is the maximum loss method, and the second is the highest relative capital method. Okay, so the first one, I am doing the first one, the minimum loss method. Okay, in case of a minimum loss method, each realization is each amount of money that is collected, each batch of assets that is sold. Each realization is considered to be the final payment. Other assets are considered worthless. Okay, so if suppose you have 10 assets and 2 of them have been sold, so when you decide who will get money and how much money they will get, you will assume that all balance assets are zero. They are not going to give you anything. So if you get an X amount, say 1 lakh rupees, you are going to be distributing in such a way that this is all you have to distribute. So you have to pay in order of priority, and you also have to pay in proportion. How that is actually done in terms of numericals, we are going to solve a sum on it, so you will understand. Okay, the second point is profit or loss in each realization is calculated and debited and credited to the partner's capital account in PSI. Okay, so each realization will lead to a realization profit or a realization loss, because each asset will have a book value and each asset when sold in the market will have a market value. So there is bound to be a realization profit or realization loss. So like in the previous example, we prepared a realization account in totality. Here you have to prepare a realization profit or loss curve working in each step. So each realization that comes to you, you have to calculate and recalculate the realization profit and loss. Obviously, logically, in the first couple of installments, it will always be a realization loss unless all the assets are realized together. So if only a small portion is realized, so obviously you will have a realization loss. But as subsequent payments come in, the realization loss might also turn into a realization profit. In each case, in each realization, the amount of realization profit or loss that you calculate has to be distributed to the partners in a PSI. So this method primarily will have a lot of charts and tables, wherein you have to keep on recalculating the profits and you have to keep on recalculating the capital balances. Okay. The third is deficiencies are adjusted in capital ratio, again as per Garner versus Murray. So in case there is an insolvency also for a partner, each subsequent time you will have to recalculate and calculate the deficiency. It is possible that even the insolvent partner's estate will realize money in parts. So you have to keep on recalculating the deficiency, and it will be debited to the other solvent partner's capital account in capital ratio. This remains the same as last sum. Okay, so this method will not involve really preparation of accounts, but preparation of a lot of workings. Okay, now we are not going to study the dissolution process again. The dissolution process remains the same. The journal entries remain the same. The debit credit concept remains the same. Only the distribution of money, at what time, how much money will go to the partners, only that will be determined by this method. We are not changing the dissolution process. We are not changing all those steps that we had done before. Okay. The second method, that is the highest relative capital method, I will prefer to do first a sum on this method, then we will come back to this theory, and then we will do a sum so that you have continuity. So I am keeping this box on hold at the moment. We are moving on. We will do a small illustration on the maximum loss method. Okay. Let's do a small sum. Okay. So the question is on the screen in front of you. You do not need to solve this. You can sit with a paper and pen to do rough workings, but there is no account making as such in these sums. Okay, it is just a calculation. So the solution is also being put up in the PowerPoint slide itself. Let's read the illustration. The following is the balance sheet of A, B and C on 31st December 2021 when they decided to dissolve the partnership. Okay, so it's a very simple form of a balance sheet. You have assets, two assets, sundry assets and cash, and on the liability side you have two external liabilities, which is creditors and a partner's loan, and you have the three capital account balances. Okay, it's a very simple balance sheet. The assets realized the following sums in installments. Okay, so this is the amount of realization. So in the first installment you have 1000 rupees, second installment 3000 rupees, and so on. So the total amount of realization is 34,000. However, you will be calculating realization profit and loss for each separate installment. Okay, so it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. The expenses of realization were expected to be rupees 500, but ultimately amounted to rupees 400. Okay, so 400 rupees were the expenses of realization. Show how at each stage the cash received would be distributed between partners. They share profits in the ratio of 2:2:1. So we are going to solve this sum by the maximum loss method, wherein at each case of realization we assume that the balance assets will be worthless. So when you do the first calculation, you will assume the total realization is only 1000 rupees and rest all is 0, and you will be calculating the realization profit or loss. Okay, let's see how the solution looks. Calculation by the maximum loss method. Okay, after taking into account, so this method, this piecemeal calculation will always be formed in a manner of tables. You are free to use tables as per your convenience. We have used the most which we feel is the most best form of presentation. If you have any other method of making a table, as long as your answers are correct, your logic is correct, it is okay. Okay, because this is just a working note. This is no set format like we had for realization account, the previous sum that we did. Okay, so let's see how the loss is calculated. So we have all the assets that are going to be realized, which are going to appear in the first column. The next three columns are the three parties to whom you have to pay money. Okay, the first two are external parties, which is creditors and the partner's loan. I am treating partner's loan as external because I stress that partner's loan is separate from partner's capital. Partner's loan has a precedence, has a favorable order of payment as compared to the partner's capital. First you will pay partner's loan, then you will pay capital. That is why we treat creditors and partners loan as external liabilities, and then we have partners capital. Okay, so in the first realization you realize rupees 1000 only. Okay, this 1000 rupees go back to the sum, the first external liability. Now out of all the liabilities that you have, I am just shifting back to the balance sheet. Okay, see the balance sheet. Creditors is the first order of payment. Okay, because after all, A's loan is a partner, he will get money second. So your first order of payment is the creditors. You will not pay anybody anything else unless 2000 rupees of creditors is discharged. Ma'am, what if we had creditors and outstanding expenses together, or what if we had creditors and bank loan together? Then you will distribute in the proportion of their loan. Okay, so if there is creditors and bank loan, they hold an equal priority. So they will distribute, you will distribute in the ratio of their weightage. So if bank loan is more, you will take out the proportion of creditors is to bank loan and you will distribute in that ratio. But here, external, pure third party liability is only creditors. So the first order of payment is creditors. So our first realization will entirely go to creditors, and therefore 1000 rupees will only and only go to creditors. Okay, let's go to the solution again. Let's jump to the solution. Yeah, so the first, like you can see, I'm just going to switch on the pointer. Yeah, so if you see, the first realization of 1000 is fully dedicated to creditors because he has a preference in the order of payment. Okay, so nothing is received by the partners loan and partners capital. The next realization is that of 3000 rupees. Out of 3000, the first 1000 again goes to the creditors because they hold a preferential order of payment. Okay, so when you pay 2000 completely to the creditors, your third party payment is finished. You have 2000 rupees in your hand for the next payment. The next order of payment is the partner's loan. We have discussed the order of payment in the last lecture. Okay, so now the partner's loan is a total of rupees 5000. Again, partner's loan and partner's capital cannot be treated at par. Partner's loan holds a preference. Now, if two partners had partner's loan, then their order of payment would have been the same. They would have been given money in the weightage of their loan. But here you have only one partner and his partner's loan, as in you have three partners but only one partner has a partner's loan. So the entire money, the second order of preference, goes to the partner's loan. So the 2000 rupees that is remaining with you will go to partner's loan. Partner's loan is 5000 rupees. It is yet to be discharged fully. Therefore, entire money is given to partner's loan out of the second realization. Okay. So partners don't receive anything. The third realization is that of 3900 rupees. Now with 3900 rupees, with the moment you allocate 3000 rupees to your partners, your external liabilities are completely paid off. Okay, you have 900 rupees remaining in your hands. Okay, so you have 900 rupees which go to the partners. Okay, at this point you have 900 rupees which is going to the partner. The next two realizations entirely go to the partners of 6000 and 20,100 because there is no other outside liability. Okay, so since there is no other outside liability, the entire realization number 4 and realization number 5 go to your partner's capital. Okay, now that we have, this is just the order of payment. Now we need to see, this is the money that your partners will receive. Okay, now we need to calculate the realization profit or realization loss at each stage. Okay, we make another working for calculation of the realization profit or realization loss. Okay, the first table is for determining how 900 rupees will be distributed. The first realization for partners is rupees 900. So we will see how this 900 needs to be distributed. Okay, so the balance of partners capital is 15, 18 and 9000. This we have got from the balance sheet. the total liability that we have to pay back to partners is 42,000 rupees. Okay, now assuming that this is the final realization, 900 is the final realization, nothing else is going to come to the partner, we are following the maximum loss method. That is why we say that whatever received is the last and final. So if they are going to get only 900 rupees, the entire balance of 41,100 is a realization loss for the partners. Okay, there is a realization loss. Now this is a possible loss that has to be distributed in their PSR. So the PSR is 2 is to 2 is to 1. So you distribute that realization loss in 16,640, 16,640 and 8,220. Okay, so this loss I have got by subtracting 900 from 42,000. Okay, so this is the possible loss. Okay, now if you see, if A has to, if you subtract this from this loss of 900 will go in this manner. Okay, the last line shows the deficiency of A's capital written off against B and C in the ratio of their capital as per Gardner versus Murray. Okay, so if you see, A has an opening balance of 15,000 and his loss is of 16,440. So A is going to have a deficiency in capital. Now this deficiency in capital will be written off against the balance to partners in their capital ratio. Okay, this is why, because A's share of loss was more than his opening capital. Okay, so therefore his deficiency is going to be borne by the other two partners in their capital ratio. Okay, so therefore after you subtract this, the partners will get this 900 rupees. 900 rupees will not go to A because he has a deficiency. It will only go to B and C in the ratio of 2 is to 1. It was 2 is to 2 is to 1. Therefore B and C will get 2 is to 1. Okay, so 900 will be distributed amongst B and C in the ratio of 600 is to 300. Okay, this is assuming we got only 900. Subsequently, again, you will make similar tables for the next two realizations of 6,000 and 20,100. Again, you will assume that 6,000 is the balance to be distributed. Therefore, for out of 42,000 of capital, they got 900 rupees first. So the balance capital to be paid to them is 41,100. So out of 41,100, we are going to assume they are going to get only 6,000 rupees. So if they are going to get only 6,000 rupees, they are going to have a loss of 35,100. This 35,100 will again be distributed amongst all the partners in their PSR. It is the same process being repeated again and again for each subsequent realization. Okay. Now in this case, there is no deficiency in either of the partners. A, B and C do not have any deficiency. Therefore, the entire profit is going to be distributed straight in form of the PSR. Okay, so 6,000 will get distributed in the form of the PSR. Okay, similarly, you do a same calculation for 20,100. So when you do that, you get the distribution of 20,100 as 8040, 8040 and 4020. Okay, so 3 times the partners have got money. First time they have got 900, second time they have got 6,000 and third time they have got 20,100. 900 was shared only by B and C because A had a deficiency, whereas 6,000 and 20,100 was shared by all the 3 partners. When you add the total amount received to them, you get their total settlement. Okay, so in totality, the partners have received 27,000 rupees, which is 900 plus 6,000 plus 20,100. This 27,000 is being received or distributed in the manner of 9,000, 12,000 and 6,000. As a result of this, they have a loss of 15,000. So they had a capital of 42,000 in the firm. They got back only 27,000 and 15,000 is their loss. Okay, even if you plot a realization account, add all these realizations, you will get the same answer. Okay, the only thing we did is we distributed each installment. Okay, are there any doubts? Okay, great. So this is the piecemeal distribution. There are a lot of in PSI. Okay, so this is the idea of the method. Even if you read your study material, it is given in a little bit technical terms. The most easy way to think of it is, if one partner is able to procure an X share in a firm for X amount of rupees, is the other partner also getting the same payment? You try to calculate the person with the least relative capital, who got the highest share in the least capital. At the moment you track that partner, if you subtract his relative capital from the others, you will get the excess capitals. Okay, there is a formula also on this. You can read these steps. If I do it now, it will not make so much sense. What we will do is we will do the sum and then you can read the steps. Okay, I'll just do it, I'll just read it for your understanding and then I'll revisit them if you have any doubts. Okay, the main crux of this method is to calculate the highest relative capital. How do you calculate the highest relative capital? You plot the partner's capital and the PSI. Okay, you divide the partner's capital by their respective shares. Okay, so you find out the capital contribution per basic unit of share. Okay, then you see the partner having the smallest share from the step 1 and you take the person who gets the smallest quotient from the division, that is your base capital. Okay, in relation to the base capital, you calculate others capital. So for example, if I am the partner having the base capital, for 5,000 rupees I am getting one share. So if there is Mr. B in the partnership and he has two shares, then he should get how much? He should be in 10,000. If I can get one share in 5,000 rupees, Mr. B should be able to get two shares in 10,000 rupees. So that is the logic. I calculate the other partner's capital in respect to my base capital. I understand it is being a little bit difficult for you, but once we do the sum, it will be crystal clear. Okay, calculate the relative capital balance of the partner's share based on the base capital. This is called as the hypothetical capital. It is not the actual capital, but it is the hypothetical capital. Excess capital is equal to actual capital minus hypothetical capital. It sounds a lot of technicalities over here. We will do the sum, you will understand. Okay, I'm just shifting over to the sum. Yes, highest relative capital method. We have taken the same example, the same question that we used in maximum loss method, again as a base for calculating under the highest capital method also. Okay, so same, three partners having capital of 15,000, 18,000 and 9,000. A, B, C, they have a capital of 15, 18 and 9. Their profit sharing ratio is 2 is to 2 is to 1. Okay, now as per the technical steps I am going, the first step says to divide the partner's capital by the PSI. So 15,000 divided by 2 is 7,500. 18,000 divided by 2 is 9,000 and 9,000 divided by 1 is 9,000. Okay, I am on the first three steps. Okay, so I did the step number 1. I divided the partner's capital by his respective share of profit. Okay, so I got my base capitals. Now the partner having the least quotient is Mr. A with 7,500. So I assume this as my base capital. And in respect of this base capital, I calculate other partners' share. So Mr. A got one share for 7,500. So if he has two shares, two parts, he has to get them for 15,000. Similarly, for Mr. B also, he also has two parts. That is why he should also get them for 15,000. So what I'm basically doing is I am taking this base capital of 7,500 and I am multiplying by the respective shares. So 7,500 into 2, 15,000, 7,500 into 2, 15,000 for Mr. B also, and 7,500 into 1, which is 7,000 for Mr. C also. Okay, so what I did was I took the base capital. Base capital is Mr. A's capital, 7,500, and I multiplied by the respective shares of profit to find out my hypothetical capital. Okay, so this is my hypothetical capital, 15, 15 and 7,500. This hypothetical capital I compare with my actual capital. So I find out A does not have any excess capital. In case of B, his actual capital is 18,000, however his hypothetical capital is 15,000, which means he has an excess capital of 3,000. Similarly, in the case of C, there is an excess capital of 1,500. Okay, another way of looking at this is basic. Think in a basic way. Mr. A got one share for 7,500. He got two shares for by contributing 15,000. So he got one share of the profit for 7,500 rupees. But Mr. C, for the same one share, he had to pay how much? He had to pay 9,000 rupees. So which means C ने excess capital दिया है. C has contributed excess by 1,500 because A was able to get two shares for 15,000, which means he was able to get one share for 7,500. But for the same one share, C had to pay 9,000. So which means C has an excess capital of 1,500. Similarly, A got two shares for 15,000. But B, for the same two parts of the profit, he had to pay 18,000 rupees as capital. So which means B has an excess capital of 3,000 rupees. Okay. So there are various ways of calculating this. If you are not comfortable calculating by logic, you can follow the steps of the method. Step number 1, divide the capital by the PSR, take the base capital, multiply it by the PSRs, find out the hypothetical capital, and then subtract with the actual capital. If you don't want to by heart the steps, you can use this logic also. Okay, as long as you calculate the excess capital, you get it right, your working note is okay. Okay, so this is the way of calculating the excess capitals. Now in this scenario, B and C will receive an order of preference when they start getting money. Okay, so again, this indicates that A should not get anything till 3,000 is paid to B and 1,500 is paid to C. Okay, so the first installment will remain the same, the second will also remain the same, but from the third installment where the partners get 900 rupees first, B and C will be paid first, if you can see over here. Similarly, of the fourth installment also, B and C will get a order of priority. So first you will clear B and C's excess capital, and once that is cleared, you will start paying to the all partners equally in PSR. Okay, so this is the only difference. Okay, if you see, the total amount remained by got by them is the same, their loss remains the same. It is only that B and C got the money first and A got it a little bit later. Okay, so these are the two methods of piecemeal distribution of